Hi there and welcome to another Psdtuts Plus spoon-fed Photoshop tutorial. In this week's tutorial we're going to be creating a shiny earth with Photoshop 3D layers in Photoshop CS4 Extended. And this tutorial is originally by Erin and you can check it out over at the site, and we're going to be creating this cool little globe, this earth, with the mountain ranges added and the cloud effects added on top. And then we're just going to finish off with a bit of shadow and then the little mirrored effect, the reflection down at the bottom. All the steps as usual over at the site. A couple of files that we're going to need are all from the same site, and we're going to be using all of these files on the left hand side. We're going to be using color map, we're going to be using the bump map to create our mountains, and then finally we're going to be using the cloud transparency image to create our final effect. So make sure you download all of those. I'm going to head to Photoshop, show you what I came up with. On my map I decided to focus in on Europe. That's where I'm originally from, but travelling at the minute, so we can put any country we want as the main focus. We're going to play around with moving all that stuff in our 3D tools. So I'm just going to minimize that out of the way. I'm going to go to File, New, create a new document. I'm going to call it Planet Earth. Make sure it's 1000 pixels wide, 500 pixels high, and increase the resolution to about 300 and click on OK. And I'm just going to bring that over, it's just off screen. Let's bring that in and let's just zoom out. Z on the keyboard, hold down Alt, and I'm going to bring that back up. Okay, that should be pretty good. So the first thing that we need to do is that we need to bring in that downloaded earth color image, and we're going to bring that straight into our document. I've got it over on the side. I'm going to use V on the keyboard and I'm just going to drag it straight in and then just line it up like so. Then we're going to go to our 3D tools up here. We're going to go to New Shape from Layer, and we're going to use Sphere. I hope you can see that on the screencast. I'm going to click on Sphere, and Photoshop does its little bit of magic, and it's now mapped our image like so. Just going to zoom in one more time. Nope, that's a little bit too much. And bring my canvas over, and let's bring that into the middle. And here we have our 3D world, and it's focused in on England here, Europe and Africa. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the 3D tools over on the left hand side, and we can start to play around with 3D rotate, the roll tool, pan, and so on. So I'm just going to rotate it for now, and you can see I can go right, left. We can focus on South America if we want to, or all of the Americas. If we hold down Shift on the keyboard, we lock it. If we hold down Alt, again, we're locking how we rotate it. So we're just locking each of those axes by holding down Shift or Alt. Okay, so once we've done that, we want to fix these jagged edges over here. And the way that we do that is we double click on our square little icon over here that tells us that we're on a 3D layer. So I'm going to double click on that. And then what we're going to do is we've got all these settings in here that are all related to the image that we're actually working with. We're going to come down to the anti-alias down here, and we're going to select Best. And you can see that's got rid of those nasty little edges for us. Once we've done that, we're going to play around with our global ambient color, which is this one here, and we're going to set that color to be 100 for each of our R, G, and B colors, like so. And then click on OK. And then we're going to download our bump map now, and I'm going to click on here to go back to our layers. And we're going to start to add a mountain range. So I'm just going to rotate this up because we're going to have the big mountain range going down the side of South America. And I'm going to zoom in just so we can make sure that we're going to be able to see this take shape. No, that's a little bit too big. So let's see if we can just come out and go back to that. Okay, hopefully we'll be able to see this. So in order to do that, we need to download and bring in the bump map. So again, back into our 3D layer, and then what we're going to go to is our sphere material. We're going to come down to edit the bump map texture, which is bump map is here, and this little button to the right, if you leave your mouse over it, it's going to tell you it's to edit the bump map texture. So we're just going to click on that, and we're going to load the texture. And then I'm going to come down to my downloads folder, and looking for our earth, and there it is, earth bump, and click on open. And you will see, if we come back to our 3D tools, that we've added this little ridge here for all of our mountains. It's just extruded those just a little bit, and again, over here we can see we've got France and all the mountains, the Alps, and so on. So it's used the blacks and the whites to bring out the areas we want to have slightly higher than the ground levels for our mountains. So once we've loaded that, we're going to set our glossiness here, down here. We're going to set that to 100, like so. And then we're going to locate our 3 light sources up at the top. We've got light 1, 2, and 3. And basically these are already set to Photoshop default. So we're going to change the type and the color of some of these and just play around with it, getting the effect on our overall image. So come over to our infinite light 1, and we're just going to set that color to 150 and 150 and 150, and click on OK. Then we're going to come down to our light 2, and we're going to set this to point, and again we're going to set its color. We're going to set it to 180 for all of them. Let's click on OK. And then we can slide the colors the lights that we're generating around by clicking on our light source over here, and we click on this little pan movement here, and we can just start to move those lights to start to add a little bit of focus to where we want that light to hit. So I'm just going to bring that up just a bit. Our light 1's fine. Light 3, we're going to set that so that it's also on point, and we're going to set that so that it is 130 for each of our R, G, and B's. So 130, 130, and 130. Click on OK. And we don't really want a light source down in the bottom down here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to bring that over to the side. The reason we don't want that down there is because we're going to have our shadow and our reflection. So we don't really want a light source down at the bottom. And we can go back into each of these, which is really good, and we can just start, move it around a bit, bring that down just a touch. With the light source 3, we can pull away. That just increases the size, brings it over a little bit. Bring it up. I think that's kind of cool, kind of lights that area there. That looks pretty good. Okay, so we're going to go back to our layers. We're going to call this one Earth. I'm going to Command J to duplicate that layer. We're going to call this layer Clouds. Excuse me. Okay, now with our Clouds layer, what we're going to do is we're going to open up the 3D layer for our duplicated layer, and we're going to come down to our sphere material. We're going to click on Edit and diffuse our texture button. So let's come down to diffuse, and then what we're going to do is we're going to select remove the texture, and it's only for this layer. Don't worry about it, we've still got our earth layer underneath, and we're going to set the diffuse color to white. So again, we just drag up to our white and click on OK, and then we're going to click on the edit the bump texture, this one here, and again we're going to remove that texture. And then we're going to download the transparency map for our clouds, and then we're going to go to our opacity, and we're going to edit this, and we're going to load our texture. And again, inside my downloads, I'm going to come down to Earth, grab the transparency one, click on open, and it's going to look way too cloudy. Okay, so we need to play around with that layer. So now when we go back to edit our opacity and we go to open the texture, it's going to load it up. We're just going to go to image, adjustments, and invert. I'm going to hit Command S to save that file. Then I'm going to close it, and it's made those adjustments. You can see we've got a bit more now light coming through. Now the problem is, if we rotate that layer, we can see behind it. So we need to turn off two-sided. And there we go, we can only see the side that we want. And then you can position these just as you see fit. So let's put this big bit of cloud coming over England, because it's always cloudy there. But only a little bit over Africa, and Spain looks pretty hot, which is pretty good. Okay, the next thing we need to do is we need to set our ambient and our specular light again to white, just to make that the clouds stand out that little bit more. Click on OK. That looks pretty good. Now we're going to apply a drop shadow. So again, we can double click on here, come to our layer styles. Going to add a drop shadow, make sure that's set to multiply, a black color, 75%. The distance is going to be 1 pixel and the size is going to be 3 pixels. And it's just going to add the slightest of drop shadows to our clouds to make them look like they're hitting the earth beneath. And it just adds, a really nice effect overall. Once you've positioned the different elements as you like them, as you want them, again, you can always go back at this stage and just start to adjust things, maybe align them up. But we want this to be a final image that we're going to print. So at some point we're going to need to flatten these layers, and that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm pretty happy with the way that looks. I'm going to hit Command E and merge those onto one layer, and I'm going to call that Earth. Now I'm going to bring in some grid lines here, so I just need to move my canvas so I can see where I'm going to position these. The first one I'm going to put halfway down, which should be about 250, and then along should be 500, and then we should pretty much be hitting the center of our image. We're going to go and grab our selection tool, or elliptic tool, come down to the middle, and I'm going to hit Shift and Alt, bring that out. We're just going to make it just less than our image. Command Shift I is going to invert it and then hit the delete key and then deselect. And what that's going to do is it's going to get rid of that drop shadow that was being applied from our clouds layer around the edge of our image. And Command H is going to get rid of those guides. Okay, so we're going to move this layer up. So V on the keyboard, just press the up key, or Shift up to move it a little bit further. We're going to add an inner shadow to create some darkness down at the bottom. So again, double click on that layer, inner shadow, set it to multiply black. We're going to increase that to 100. The angle is going to be -90 and 25 for the distance and 46 for our size. Everything else looks fine. Click on OK and you get this dark area down at the bottom. This part probably isn't in the sun, so it's going to be nice and dark. And then we're going to create a new layer. I'm going to bring it underneath our earth. We're going to call that shadow. Hit on enter. And then we're basically going to use the ecliptic tool to make a little shadow down at the bottom. So I'm going to grab that. And again, if you want to bring your guides back up just to make sure you get it in line, I'm going to click about here, hold down Alt, and that looks pretty good. Grab my paint bucket tool, select black, and I'm going to fill that in down at the bottom. Once you've done that, we're going to go up and give it a Gaussian blur. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Let's bring that over, and we want that set to about 7 pixels. So click on OK. Then we're going to apply motion blur. So filter, blur, motion blur. And again, this time we're going to set that to 0 for the angle and 150 for the pixels. And we're going to click on OK. Now I'm just going to bring that shadow layer up. Like so. So it's just touching our Earth. Okay, we're going to duplicate our shadow layer. Command J on the keyboard. And then we're going to go to Command T, which is going to free transform it. And we're going to reduce the width and the height to 60%. And that's just going to create this little dark area right where the Earth is touching the ground here. Last thing to do is we're going to duplicate our Earth layer. Command J. We're going to Command T, free transform it. Right click on your free transform, flip it vertically. V on the keyboard and Shift, and I'm just going to move that down. Don't worry if it goes off the canvas. Okay, and then we're going to move that layer right below all of our shadow layers, like so. We're going to come over here and we're going to apply a mask, so select the mask. We're going to grab our gradient tool, and again make sure that's set up at the top to linear, and then what we're going to do is we're going to create a mask, a gradient mask that covers most of this little tip down here. So I'm going to go like so. That looks pretty good, just fades in. And then we're going to apply a filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Going to set that to 2 pixels. And we're going to reduce the opacity down to about 75%. Something like that. We're going to double click on our background layer. Click on OK, just to open that layer up. And then I'm going to select a nice pale blue color. And again, just going to bring that straight down from the top. Maybe come a little bit further down. Like so. And there is our final image. Let's zoom out. Okay, it looks pretty good. Nice quick tips on how to use the new 3D tools in Photoshop CS4. Original tutorial by Erin over at psdtutsplus.com. Do check them out. And thanks for watching. I've been Gavin Steele and I hope you enjoyed that.